My father didn't cough or clear his throat before he slid the sleek leather binder across the mahogany. He simply spoke my sister's name like it was already written in stone. Leela had been back exactly 1 week. I had shouldered my parents for a decade. My mother's small nod rang louder than any shout could have. I said nothing. I didn't flinch. I set the durable power of attorney beside the ring of house keys. The steel rang out, slicing the quiet. Everyone assumed I was yielding. But when Leela unfolded the note I had left for her, she didn't reread it. She couldn't. I grew up in corridors that smelled of bleach and faded lilac, the overhead lights humming like tired bees. My father always walked ahead, long sure strides, calling every resident by their first name. I followed, pushing a wheelchair I was still too short to manage, standing on tiptoe so it wouldn't veer. The frame rattled and he'd glance back with a smile that never reached me. "Easy there, Cora," he'd murmur, then turn again to whoever he hoped to charm. Leela never followed anyone. She glided, dresses that floated, curls that caught every lamp, laughter that tugged every gaze toward her like tide. My mother arranged her in doorways, beside Christmas trees, posting photos with captions about our brilliant tomorrow. Sometimes I drifted into the edge of the frame, half-cropped, holding a chart or mopping a spill no one else saw. Even as children, the roles felt scripted. Leela got ballet slippers, art camps, weekend workshops to nurture her gifts. I got duty. Cora's so self-sufficient, my parents told visitors, as though self-sufficiency was a trait I'd been born with instead of carved into. When Leela groaned about algebra, they found a private tutor. When I carried home perfect report cards, my father nodded over his screen. "That's what we expect from you." One birthday stands out. Leela's had fireworks on the cake, metallic balloons, cousins packed shoulder to shoulder singing off-key. Mine, 8 weeks later, was a lopsided rectangle from the supermarket left on the counter, icing sliding off one corner. My mother kissed my forehead and reminded me to pick up my scrubs before the night shift at the home. I was 16. The shift wasn't mandatory. The second mortgage was. I didn't hate Leela then. She hadn't written the script. She simply danced inside it. But I learned early that desire made me troublesome, so I stopped desiring. I refilled pill organizers, folded warm towels, helped residents address Christmas cards in shaky handwriting. I became the girl who fixed things without being asked, whose reliability erased any need for applause. By the time I was grown, the mold had set. Leela moved to Atlanta to chase a career in branding and content, a path my parents mentioned with hushed awe. When she phoned, it was usually to ask for another transfer. They always sent it. Then my father's heart stuttered, my mother's memory began to slip. The homes began to sag. Employees quit, rules tightened, and the person they leaned on was not the daughter they had poured money and dreams into. It was me. I signed the power of attorney on orange vinyl in a hospital corridor at 3 a.m., my mother nodding like this moment had always been waiting. "You're steady in a crisis," she breathed. It wasn't praise, it was assignment. Some evenings, after double shifts, I'd catch my reflection in the glass entrance doors, spine straight, hair in a low knot, tablet against my chest. I didn't look 20-something. I looked like someone who had already served her sentence. I remember thinking, even then, that this was my station. Never chosen, simply handed over. That was the day I understood what my family truly thought. Leela was the portrait, I was the frame. The change arrived without thunder, the way humidity thickens before rain. At first it was tiny omissions. An email about a state survey landed without my name copied, then another. Then a calendar invite for leadership transition planning. I learned about only when a nurse asked why I wasn't presenting the numbers. I stood in the linen closet, cold air from the vaccine fridge raising goosebumps, clutching a carton of gauze, while my phone lit up with a photo from my mother. Leela in front of the main building, hair dancing in breeze, captioned the next chapter. I stared until the screen went black. Another ping, an invitation, embossed card, gold foil, celebrating our family legacy, date and venue listed, my name nowhere, just slipped into my mailbox like junk mail. That evening I stepped into the kitchen. Garlic and tomatoes hung in the air. My father stood at the island, murmuring to Leela about vision, innovation, the coming decade. My mother leaned nearby, smiling the way she did when something felt cinematic. I waited to be seen. I wasn't. When my father finally noticed, he offered the distracted half-smile he gave staff. "Cora, you don't need to worry about the big picture items right now. You've carried so much already. Time for Leela to step up." The phrase "step up" echoed. Leela stood with arms loosely folded, polite stage smile ready, as though waiting for her cue. I opened my mouth, nothing came. My fingers whitened around the tablet edge. My mother brushed my wrist. "You're wonderful behind the scenes, sweetheart. Let her have the spotlight." Behind the scenes, the words landed like lead. Later, I found another binder on the table, financial forecasts in Leela's looping handwriting. Numbers that didn't add up, timelines that ignored reality. Yet my parents had scrawled their initials in blue ink at every corner. They had already chosen. I sat. The chair legs whispered across tile. My breathing evened, thin but steady. I studied the pages again and felt something inside me click into place, not shatter. I simply closed the binder, aligned it perfectly, and went upstairs. Each stair felt lighter, as if I were shedding altitude. In my childhood room, walls still the same washed-out periwinkle, I sat on the bedspread and let the tablet glow across my palms. The house was quiet except for Leela's laugh floating upward, bright and weightless, already rehearsing her new part. I opened a blank file. No title, no rage, just white space. Then I started. First section, a timeline. 10 years collapsed into dated lines. Heart attacks, surprise audits, norovirus outbreaks. The winter we almost lost Medicare entirely. Every fire I walked into because no one else knew the layout. Second section, infrastructure, state licenses, proprietary care pathways, vendor agreements, referral networks. I listed every name that depended on the machine, not the real machine, not the real estate. The surveyors who trusted my data, the hospitalists who greenlit our protocols, the social workers who dialed my cell at midnight when a family fell apart. I didn't have to invent evidence. It had always existed. I only had to gather it. Before dawn the next morning, I drove the empty streets of Savannah, sky the color of wet cement. I parked outside Dr. Harlan's townhouse. His porch light was on, kettle already whistling. He opened the door in pajamas and didn't ask questions. He simply moved aside. His study smelled of cedar and coffee. I laid my pages on the low table. He read without interruption, glasses slipping, turning each sheet like it weighed something. When he finished, he leaned back. "They're stepping around you," I nodded. "And you're tired of begging to be noticed." Another nod. He tapped the timeline. "You don't want vengeance. You want architecture." That afternoon, he phoned Miss Reyes. She arrived in quiet heels with a slim briefcase and the stillness of someone who had untangled richer knots than ours. She read everything: contracts, message threads, audit histories, the still active power of attorney. Her mouth tightened only once, at Leela's projections. "They think they're handing over an empire," she said, "but they don't grasp what an empire here actually is." "Tell me," I answered. She touched the licenses first. "These are the bones. Without them, the buildings are just brick." Then the care pathways I'd written over years. "This is protected intellectual property. You authored it." Last, she lifted the partnership summary. "This is relational capital. It follows competence, not blood." I sat very still. "You can insulate what you built," she went on, "not with drama, with walls." For 7 days, we constructed a nonprofit entity to cradle every intangible asset. The name, the clinical playbook, the data backbone, the referral streams, not to hoard, but to shield a system that served residents, not egos. Harbor Light Foundation. I picked the name without fanfare, a steady light for people who needed safe passage. Using the unrevoked power of attorney, I executed every transfer with the same care I once used measuring morphine. Every form signed, witnessed, recorded. My parents, thinking it mere paperwork to streamline things while we're unwell, accepted ceremonial advisor titles without reading past the first page. No equity, no veto, just their names on a letterhead. When it was finished, I returned to daily rounds as though nothing had shifted. Checked charts, adjusted staffing, greeted nurses who met my eyes with the quiet gratitude of people who remembered who kept the lights on. Leela wafted through corridors with a rose gold notebook, suggesting font choices for the new brochures. My parents lit up whenever she spoke. The night before the legacy dinner, I sat in the cramped office behind the med room. Fluorescence buzzed. My tablet showed one final file, a letter addressed to Leela. Not venomous, not triumphant, merely lucid. I explained what she was actually receiving. A hollow shell, obligation without preparation, a crown without the kingdom. I described the foundation not to wound, but to warn her of the truth our parents refused to face. I closed with a single sentence that felt like walking into sunlight. "What you carry from here is entirely what you decide to pick up." I printed it, folded it once, sealed it in a scarlet envelope, quietly impossible to ignore. The evening of the dinner, I slipped the envelope into my bag beside the keys and the original power of attorney, 3 small objects carrying the whole truth. This time, I would not repair what they shattered. This time, the structure would announce itself. The private room glowed candles, starched linens, flutes catching light. My parents stood at the head, radiant in a way illness had stolen for years. Leela sat centered, spine perfect, fingertips circling her glass like she'd rehearsed the gesture. When my father pinged Crystal with a spoon, chatter dissolved. His voice carried warm and certain. "Thank you for joining us. Tonight we toast the future of what we've built." He turned to Leela, chin high with pride. "She's ready to lead us forward." My mother nodded, eyes shining. "She's earned it." The words no longer burned. They merely confirmed the map I already held. I waited until the clapping faded. Then I rose, not theatrically, just enough for movement to pause and voices to drop. I laid 3 items before me on the white cloth: the keys, the power of attorney, the scarlet envelope. The keys landed with a small, decisive chime. My father frowned. "Cora, not now." I nudged everything gently toward Leela. "It's yours." Some guests smiled, thinking it gracious. Others sensed the temperature shift. Leela reached for the envelope first. She slid out the pages, scanned, then slowed. Her brow creased. She turned to the second sheet, then the third. "What is this?" she breathed. No one spoke. She kept reading, grip tightening until the paper crumpled at the edges. "This isn't, this can't." Her chair scraped violently as she stood. The room flinched with her. My father snatched the pages. Color drained as he reached the clauses moving trademarks, clinical systems, licensing rights to Harbor Light. His hand shook. "Cora, what have you done?" I stayed quiet. My mother grabbed another sheet, eyes darting in panic. "It says we don't control any of it, that the properties are empty shells," I supplied softly. "Just shells." A vacuum of silence swallowed the room. In the corner, Mr. Hewitt, Harbor Light's counsel, stood, until now invisible among guests. His tone was courteous, almost kind. "Every statement in that packet is correct. The transfers occurred 3 years ago under the durable power of attorney Miss Cora Hart then held." My father's voice cracked. "Without our real consent, with your signatures," Mr. Hewitt answered mildly. "Medical capacity was verified by 2 physicians and a notary. We possess dated documentation." Leela stared at me, breath shallow. "So what exactly did you just hand me?" Hewitt closed his folder with soft finality. 2 depreciating facilities and their associated liabilities. Anything beyond that requires ongoing approval from Harbor Light, contingent on maintaining the clinical benchmarks Miss Hart established. My mother shook her head too fast. "She'll meet them. She'll learn if staffing falls, if incident rates rise, if core processes deviate by more than a narrow margin." Hewitt continued, "Harbor Light may withdraw operational authority within 60 days. Without authority, the buildings may not function as care facilities." My father whispered, "So we're left with nothing." I didn't correct him. They were left with precisely what they had prized: image without substance. Leela collapsed back into her chair, the letter limp, the poised shoulders folded. "I thought it was something whole," she said, voice small. I finally spoke. "It was. The work, the duty, the lives held together. You simply never looked closely enough to see it." Hewitt gathered his papers. "This structure safeguards residents and employees first. It is not retribution, it is architecture." My parents looked at me as though scales had fallen, seeing not the daughter who carried, but the woman who had stopped. I offered no solace. I raised no voice. I simply stepped away from the table and walked out, the silence trailing me like a wake. I didn't sleep that night, not from remorse, there was none, but because the house felt hollow without the old pressure against every wall. My phone stayed dark. No overnight texts about falls, no pharmacy calls, no frantic emails about surveyors. The absence felt foreign, like breathing different air. By morning, the fallout had already begun, rooted exactly where it belonged. I watched from the distance I had earned. A week later, I passed my parents in a crowded Medicaid office. Hands knotted, eyes fixed forward. They didn't see me. I kept walking. Not cruelty, just nothing left to mend. A month after that, during an unannounced visit to one of the old sites, I spotted Leela guiding a resident's wheelchair down a dim hall, movements tentative, almost tender. She looked smaller without an audience. She didn't notice me. I let her keep the moment. Some endings roar, mine sighed into quiet. For the first time, I carried only what was mine. Nothing exploded afterward. No slammed doors, no last confrontation. Just a boundary drawn in stillness. Families break loudly, borders settle softly, like dust that finally stops rising once you quit pretending you're the one keeping the house from collapsing. Freedom wasn't victory, it was refusal to keep holding. Sometimes the most powerful statement is no statement at all. And sometimes the hush that follows is the only honesty that ever mattered. If this one lingered, stay near. Others are on the way.